We're going to start off today by talking about Pete Buttigieg in the 2019-2020 Democratic presidential race. Currently, Pete Buttigieg is being propped up by mainstream media as a serious contender. And in our recent New Hampshire poll, where he finished fourth place, CNN made sure to talk about how it was a strong fourth place at 10%. And the issue with his candidacy is he's polling at literal 0% with black voters. And of course, you can't win a Democratic primary. You can't even hope to challenge for the nomination in a Democratic primary without significant support from the black community. And polling at 0%, the first thing CNN decides to say is that, well, maybe it's happening because of, quote, homophobia in the black race. And, it's just to paint black people as uniquely homophobic for a candidate who is not even polling at 10% nationally is pretty hilarious, because what does that say then for other groups in the Democratic primary that are not supporting people to judge the race?
It's basically saying that the entire Democratic Party is homophobic because you don't have women, you don't have Latinos, you don't have black people. So who do you have other than maybe some corporations, which...
I mean, he's getting more donations from billionaires and super PAC money than anybody in this race so far. And that's not to say he doesn't have any grassroots support, because obviously if you start doing well in Iowa, which is a caucus state, you do have some level of grassroots enthusiasm. But I think that if the plan for the Democratic Party to avoid a Warren or a Sanders nomination is for Pete Buttigieg to do well, and he does well in Iowa and New Hampshire, which are two of the whitest states in the country, that still does not get to the issue at hand, that he's at 0% with black voters. And the reason why is not because black voters are homophobic. It's not because, any other contrived conspiracy against Pete Buttigieg. It's the simple fact that within his city, he allegedly fired the chief of police and originally demoted him. Then the chief of police fought against that and he ended up getting fired. And he allegedly did that because advisors were pushing for him to do that. Now, this chief of police is the first black chief of police in South Bend, Indiana history. And this is a city with 102,000 people, very low voter turnout when he won his mayoral race. And every single time that he ran for mayor, less and less black people turned out to support him. So to me, that tells me that in such a small city, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows the local politics, what's going on, And for your black support to continuously erode in such a small city, and for you to have hope that somehow it rebounds, or, you can't even say double because it's at 0%, but that it starts to increase just a little bit is just comical to me.
The fact is he doesn't have any support from the black community because he's not doing anything or proposed anything for the black community. There's nothing on the edge of Medicare or anything like that for all that's going to significantly help the black community. His platform is just another corporate Democrat, center-right, middle lane. Like, let's just take
Medicare for all who want it, which is pretty much a public option, is the biggest wet kiss you can possibly give to the health insurance and pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. Like, it's pretty much saying that, yes, we're for getting as many people as we possibly can covered, at least what they consider to be possibly, and as far as coverage goes. But what it does is it still leaves a significant amount of people underinsured. It still leaves an even larger amount of people uninsured. And it doesn't address the problems that over 500,000 people a year are declaring bankruptcy for medical costs. They can't afford their hospital bills. You have hospitals literally suing people now. There's people who can't afford their insulin. There's people who can't afford their cancer medication. And when you're sitting there and you're offering, and so many of those issues affect the black community at disproportionate rates. And so when you have a candidate who offers nothing, who literally tells black protesters at his little rallies that he has in his town that you won't get our support, and he tells them, I'm not asking for your vote. When you add all these things in together, it's no wonder why black people are saying, no, we're good. Like,
how can you say you're not asking for your base's vote? That's your base. The minority vote, the woman vote, that is the Democratic base. Yep. How can you not ask your base for the vote? Like,
It's arrogance. It's arrogance. I mean, a few weeks ago, he said that the race is coming down to him and Elizabeth Warren.
He's not even.
What are you talking about? You're in fourth place, and nationally, you're battling. Sometimes you're being outperformed by an entrepreneur like Andrew Yang, who doesn't have any political experience whatsoever, but yet and still is outperforming you. It's still raising $10 million from grassroots movement. You're not anywhere near the top 3 contenders. Like they're tripling you in some polls as far as support goes. So, to have his campaign compared to the 2008 Barack Obama's presidential campaign, which was one of the most effective and well-run campaigns in the history of American politics, to compare it to that simply because he's starting to excite supporters in 2 of the whitest states and ignore the issues that he has is very hypocritical, because the entire narrative in 2015 and 2016 on why Bernie Sanders couldn't possibly get the nomination is because he was lacking in black support. So now, and people always talk about how Sanders supporters are always, crying about media coverage and how unfair it is. But this is a perfect example of that. You have, in one instance, somebody who's seriously challenging Hillary Clinton, the most groomed candidate of all time.
Checks off every box on paper.
Every box. You have the reason he can't possibly topple her is because he doesn't have the black support as far as Bernie Sanders is concerned. But now we fast forwarded, and because Bernie and Warren are doing so well, and Biden continuously slips, now you have to prop up a new one to take his place, a new neoliberal to take his place, and now we're not talking about the black support anymore. And if we are talking about it, it's the negative connotation that the reason why they're not doing this is because they're homophobic or they're this, they're that. And to me, it speaks to the lack of awareness from mainstream media to break out of that beltway bubble that they're stuck in. And what happens a lot with these politicians is that they're so caught up into these dinner parties with each other and with wealthy campaign contributors that they hear what each other say to them, and they take that and this has to be the narrative then in America. So if me and you are at a dinner party and, I'm a host on MSNBC or CNN and you're a wealthy campaign contributor and you say, man, I really like that Pete Buttigieg. Oh, America's starting to fall in love with Pete Buttigieg. It's time to run that story. And it's not that, that doesn't make the mainstream media dishonest. It's just that, it doesn't make them, fake news like Donald Trump likes to call them. It makes them dishonest, and it shows that they omit the truth a lot when it comes to candidates who challenge that structure of power. And if you're going to have the black support, you're going to have to challenge that structure of power. Because I think that in this election cycle specifically, black voters more than ever are not settling for whatever you can give me.
It's not just black voters. It's all minorities, and that includes women. And you look at Trump, well, he did better with women than Hillary did because Trump challenged the structure of power.
Exactly.
I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to clean this up. And he kind of made it seem like he was there for the common person.
Yeah.
Even though we all know he wasn't.
I mean, pathological liar.
Definitely. But you have to have something of sincerity, of authenticity that people can relate to. Bernie's been saying the same thing for 30, 40 years. Joe's went back and forth for 30, 40 years. Elizabeth Warren, not so much as Joe, but she once was.
She used to be a Republican until her 40s.
So you don't suddenly wake up and realize that everything is wrong. You still have some of those traits. Like Pete's a media darling that has no authenticity and has nothing going for him other than them constantly saying he's a veteran or a war hero. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't work in the Democratic Party.
Especially when you have Tulsi Gabbard in the race as well.
Exactly. Like the last Democratic president that was a war veteran was JFK. Like that was it's 2019. That was almost 50 years ago.
Right.
They don't care about that. They care about what you have to say and what are you going to do for me.
Exactly.
It's just a media concoction of trying to get him to be liked, and he's just not liked.
Because even if he does, so in Iowa, the rules are that if your candidate that you're supporting in the caucus does not make 15% of that vote, then you're able to reassign your vote for another candidate. So what I'm worrying is that say Pete finishes third or second in Iowa, then the national media is going to explode even further. And if he places fourth or third in New Hampshire, he can't win Nevada and he can't win South Carolina because those are two constituencies that are just not interested in him as far as the Latino vote and as far as the black vote, respectively. So what I'm worried about is that they try to take this narrative that, he might not have won these states, but he did well in these states. See, guys, don't you like him? Can't we just push him on you? And you start creating this fracture again that's already there, but you start to create an even deeper fracture within the Democratic base that you can't really pull back together by the time the nomination process comes around.
It's the same tactics that they use with Bernie, but it's in reverse. Instead of Bernie doing well and you seeing it as an opportunity for him to actually win the Democratic nomination, it's flipping it for Pete. Like, he has a chance. There's hope. And it's not. Like, if you're polling like this late,
exactly,
you're not in the race.
Trump polls better with African Americans than Pete Buttigieg, so
and that says a lot. Trump said to black people, "What do you have to lose?" At least he said something to us. Like, but Pete said nothing at all. Like, there's not one thing. He doesn't want
our vote. He's not asking for our vote.
You're not asking for the base. That's the smartest thing I've ever heard. But I'm not a politician.
Little man Pete. I could just see Trump ragdolling him on the debate stage.
I can see Trump ragdolling everybody except Bernie.
You got that damn right.